Beginning of NBA free agency week. Well, it's not until Friday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. We still have a lot to talk about. Let's begin with Tobias Harris. Is he gone? Is he staying? Well, seems like he's staying. We'll break it down, tell you why, right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to NBA free agency week. How about that? Yes, this is Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio here in Philadelphia, alongside my co-host and partner, as always, Sixers beat writer extraordinaire from The Inquirer, theinquirer.com. He's Keith Pompey, and we thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including right here on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Keith, what's going on, man?
What's going on, D?
How's the weekend?
The weekend's been well, man. This weekend's been well.
A lot of rain, huh?
Yeah, a lot.
I like
You don't have to water your grass.
You don't have to worry about it. There was a lot of rain. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Well, listen, man, we'll see if there's some things that the 76ers can do in terms of continuing to grow their franchise, as free agency, again, is on Friday. It starts the free agency period, the calendar for the new season, the new year, for the NBA. So free agent period will be open on Friday at 6 Eastern, and we'll be all over it, of course, here at Locked On 76ers, theinquirer.com, 97.5 The Fanatic for me, and we'll have all that for you. The big name, of course, with free agency is James Harden here locally. Talk about him a little bit later and get into all of that conversation, but we have to start off with, yes, another conversation in terms of a podcast with Tobias Harris's dad, going on a podcast, discussing some things about his son's future. But we also have to start off with Keith's story from theinquirer.com over the weekend where, hey, man, a lot of traction out there with Tobias's name. You had the story a week ago before the draft where three teams, Detroit, Indiana, and Cleveland, had interest in Tobias Harris. Nothing moved on that front before the draft. And now as we get closer to the start of free agency, some more things, specifically the Phoenix Suns as one of the teams, Keith, that you reported on, that there was a potential of a three-way deal with Tobias Harris maybe moving on to Phoenix, which would have been very interesting to team up with those guys out there on the West as they try to find the right fit for Frank Vogel's new squad with Beal, Durant, and Booker. Ayton probably on the move. Right now, though, it doesn't seem like that's something that's going to happen. Keith, what can you talk about with this one as you wrote the story over the weekend?
Yeah, what happened is, so let's say the Phoenix Suns were among the teams. There were 6 teams who inquired about Tobias. And, the thing is, it was the Phoenix Suns, the Indiana Pacers, Detroit Pistons, Utah Jazz, Dallas Mavericks, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Sixers never had any intentions of getting rid of Tobias. Now, from what I was told by a source who's very, 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 very close to the situation, is where with Phoenix, they knew, Phoenix was trying to trade Ayton, right? Everybody talked about that. And the thing is, they knew that they couldn't afford to bring in Tobias for Ayton. With Ayton being there. So it was one of those things where, in order for it to work out, they would have to get a third team involved. Now, the thing is, the Sixers scratched it from early on. But the source felt like that there was still a window that something could possibly happen. Mm-hmm. But what happened is, Phoenix came back, and it was one of those things, knowing that the 76ers aren't going to do it. Like, from what I heard, Daryl Morey just didn't want to deal with it at all. Like, as far as they don't want to deal with anything. They've also said that they don't want to trade Tobias. They're just not. Like, they got other windows where they can do it, but they're not going to do anything just now. But from what I was told is that it was one of the things is that would have been perhaps the only way that something could have happened. So, but again, the 76ers did not want to move Tobias. They don't, and it's like to a point where people call and asking, guess what they're doing? They're like basically, how should you say it? Saying outrageous things like, "Oh, you want him? Okay, blah blah blah," knowing that teams aren't going to do that. So it was one of those things where I guess Phoenix didn't want the stuff out there in the first place, and then they just were not doing anything like this and that. But again, the conversation was had. It didn't get anywhere really. But it was one of those things where, like, again, the 76ers aren't trying to move Tobias right now. They're not.
So I guess that's what we need to look at going forward for this week. Anything can change, but right now it just appears that that's not going to be the case for Tobias Harris. So this is kind of like what we've talked about before, Keith, where it looks like the Sixers are just ready. If the James Harden piece is like you've reported that it looks like he's going to be coming back here to Philadelphia, or maybe on a shorter term deal, something that they can both agree upon. This is the team that they're going to have going forward.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I mean, you never know what's
Who's your
going to
starting
happen.
five?
Yeah. I mean, possibly. Yeah, I do believe so. I mean, when you look at it, let's be honest to yourself. Like, are you going to get anybody with Tobias Harris's contract? Are you going to get anything back in return that's better than him? And I don't think so. You're not. You're not going to get anything back in return that's better than him. I feel like if James doesn't come back, and then what you might want to do is you might want to, you could possibly trade Tobias and get some young assets, right? Some young complementary players. But as far as like a team that's wanting to win a championship, you're not going to get anything back in return of equal value or close to equal value when it comes back to that contract, right? You're just not. Right now it's like you got maybe certain teams trying to call and probably get over and see if, the Sixers trying to do something, or they got to make those calls, but you're not going to get anything back. So to me, I feel as if that is, you're correct. That's one of those things where you may be better off just bringing them all back, because let's face it, they had a chance to win in this series, the second round series against the Boston Celtics in 6 games. If not for that horrid fourth quarter that they had, they probably would have been in the Eastern Conference Finals. So when you bring in a new coach and you have a new approach and you do things like that, what tends to happen is you have that belief that at least if we had a different coach, that it will be a different result. So with that being said, at least the core pieces, you expect them to bring the core pieces back.
And the one thing that I wanted to address in your story was the asking price for Tobias Harris when it came to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Evan Mobley, a first team all defense in the NBA, a runner-up, one of the finalists, for the Defensive Player of the Year. So he was all defense, first team, runner-up, a top 3 finalists, of the Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA. And then Jared Allen, an all-star a year ago, not this past season, but a year ago. So 2 talented young players in the front court for the Cavaliers, where their defense is built around those 2 young players. And that's what Daryl Morey decided to ask the Cleveland Cavaliers back for in this deal, knowing that there was no way the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So it's kind of sort of like, I honestly think that somebody wanted the conversation to go out there, about trade talks. The Sixers accommodated it, right? But yet and still they didn't do it. They did it to say they did it, but they did it in a way knowing that nobody would get back to, nobody would take them seriously.
Okay.
So if we're going to be real, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that was one way that was happening.
So yeah. So, and it's just like how, like, let's think about this. Daryl Morey, people will tell you that Daryl Morey came here to close the deal on bringing James Harden to Philly a couple years ago, right? So next thing you know, Ben Simmons wants to be traded. Teams are inquiring about what does it take to get Ben Simmons. And then word leaks out of all these crazy demands the 76ers had. Teams did not want to deal with that stuff, and they backed away. And then when a team felt like they had an opportunity to get it, that they were willing to come back and say, all right, well, we'll agree to it. Then what happened? But you got to take Tobias Harris too, knowing dang on well that they weren't going to do it. So I look at this as kind of like the same thing. Like, yo, if y'all going to make this move, and if y'all stupid enough to go ahead and give us all this for this guy, then we'll take it. Outside of that, don't call back no more. We're not doing anything right now. So that's how it went down. You know what I mean? That's how it went down.
And the only difference there is you're talking about a 3-time All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year finalist, a 25-year-old guy, franchise piece. And, you know, in this case with Tobias Harris, it's a 1-year deal for $39 million, where it may not be as appealing as it was for Ben Simmons at that time. So that's that. Well, listen, man, it's going to be a crazy week, and I know you're going to be extremely busy. So we have a lot to talk about. One of the things that we have to address is we can't talk about the Tobias Harris piece with your story and all, and then something totally separate comes out with his dad on a podcast discussing some things about the league and about, you know, his son overall, that he is an assassin scorer. His quote about Tobias Harris. It was a very popular thing discussed over the weekend among Sixer fans. We'll get into it next, right here on Locked On 76ers. And as we discuss the 76ers and building a championship team, in order for a championship team to be that, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. You may not be able to trade in the National Basketball Association just that easy by heading to a website to find the right fit. You have to do some maneuvering. But here, they make it much, much easier when it comes to your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right prices, the right fit, and the right parts on ebaymotors.com. Again, get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Every dayers, tomorrow on the show, we'll again preview free agency week in the NBA, maybe look ahead to some of the local guys on the team currently who are free agents and their possibility of returning and stepping away from this team, and look at the other 29 teams and the possibility of maybe some of their players having the chance to join the Philadelphia 76ers at the end of the week via free agency and or trade. We'll do that later on tomorrow. But first now, Keith, let's get to the story also of the weekend. It's a big Tobias Harris weekend, man. As we look at what was said about Tobias Harris, his dad, in this particular case, on another podcast where he called his son an assassin scorer and basically talked about how he felt like Tobias is, very well liked around the league, and just discussing it all as he goes on this podcast. And when he was with the Clippers, he was an assassin scorer, and ever since then, though, Philadelphia has put him in the corner. Now he has been relegated to the corner, really, when James Harden got here, for the reasons as you talked about. He's basically a fourth option on this basketball team. Now, we do look at this situation where it may be an opportunity for him with this new coach, where they may have him on the move more, they may involve him a little bit more in the offense and all of that. But the key phrase there, or the two key words for a lot of people, is assassin scorer when it comes to Tobias Harris. So, what did you make of what he had to say, and basically that his son is not being utilized the right way?
Yeah, let's start off by first saying, also, in addition to being his father, he is his agent. He's his father / agent for Unique Sports International. I took it as if, let's face it, Tobias isn't happy being the fourth option. He wasn't happy being that. I think, Tobias rarely talks about stuff like that, but when you hear comments like this, you can easily see it. Sometimes you're talking for your client. Now, the deal is, I do think that, Tobias came here with the expectation that he'd probably be more involved in the offense. He took some sacrifices. Before he came to Philadelphia, he was known as a scorer, right? But I think that the father, or Torrel, his agent, father / agent, was basically trying to put it out there like, look, my client can still get it up. He's not being utilized the right way. The thing is, it's kind of tough when there's people in Philly who everyone's not sold on him. Meaning, like, when you look at him and you look at the amount of money he's making, and you look at his role, and then you come out with this, people are going to say in Philly, yo, bruh, you winning. You're about to make 39 mil next year. This is going to be your final year of 180. So they're going to say that. Now, again, this was his lowest scoring output that he's had, I think, since the 2000, I want to say 13-14 season with the Orlando Magic. Everything went down. And when he came here, when he was traded here with the Los Angeles Clippers, because he came here from the Clippers, that season he averaged a career high 20.9 points. So he was getting buckets. And it is true that he is off in the corner. He was off in the corner the first year. And then all of a sudden, he gradually, the 1 year when Ben wasn't around, for most of that season, he was the point guard, really. Like, if you want to be real, Maxey would bring the ball up to half court, and they would run their offense through Tobias. So he was involved. But once James came, that became James' role, and you needed another floor spacer to help the James and Joel pick and roll go. So that became his role as a catch and shooter. The one thing that I will say is that for his role this past season, I felt like he played well. As that fourth option, his defense got better. He became a better catch and shoot guy. So I understand where these comments come from, but I also understand why people are upset, or why people are doing, because you say assassin scorer, but people may point out some games where he didn't score a lot.
Yeah, because like you said, you can understand that as a player, you feel like you're better than a fourth option. At worst, you feel like you're at least a third option on the championship team, and that's all right to think that, especially when you've been putting up 19 points on average. Of course, you should think that way. But it's the part of when you make a statement like that and you call your son an assassin scorer, you're going to open yourself up to also be mocked about it, because as much as people like Tobias as a nice person, I don't know many people who see him as an assassin scorer. And when you talk about that, I mean, look at who we're talking about. We're talking about Kevin Durant. We're speaking about Joel Embiid with his 33 points on average. Even Bradley Beal, a tremendous scorer in this league. Luka Doncic, Devin Booker. These are the types of names, and you're gonna put yourself out there, and you're going to subject yourself to some criticism there. And you know what the other part about that too, Keith, is Tobias didn't say it. So they're not gonna, Tobias is getting the second hand. He's getting strays here, if you will, because of what his dad had to say about it. But I thought it was interesting, and it's certainly something that's being discussed with your story quite a bit this weekend overall. And he's going to be here. And now that's just going to be a part of what 76er fans, or maybe when they go to other arenas and they're going to make signs and call him an assassin scorer.
I don't think it'll. I don't think it will get that far. I mean, I think that it's going to be something that's going to be. I think it's something that's going to go away. And the thing is, let's face it. I mean, we're both parents, right?
Yeah.
And although Torrel, wants to be recognized as his client. I mean, let's face it. Torrel did represent George Gervin. I mean, he represents Kelly Oubre. He has another guy who's one undrafted. He's going to sign a free agent deal with someone. He has people overseas. So he is, he's been the agent longer than Tobias has been in the NBA. So, Tobias was born the son of he was a son of an agent. So, but at the same time, we all know that how it goes. We all know, like, with parents, we're passionate about our kids, and someone asks a question and we'll say it. You know what I mean? We'll say it. And evidently he believes heavily in his son enough to where when the when the Clippers only wanted to give him a $80 million deal, he was like, nah, my son better than that. And people might have mocked him and saying, what are you doing? You turning away at $80 million? Well, he got his son plus $100 million on that, right? So, he believes in him, and it worked in the past. So but yeah, you are right. I mean, Philly is a different breed, though. Like
100%.
Coming here, the fans are different. Like, the fans come in here from the gate. When they first sign people, I mean, look at these three guys they got two-way contracts for, and the other dude, the Exhibit 10. People are treating them like they are acting as if they made it in the first round. We're passionate. So we are. Like, they're extremely passionate. And then all of a sudden, when we see knocks, chinks in the armor, then it's like, nah. But initially, and I feel like that's how it was with Tobias. When Tobias was signed free agent, that was one of the biggest news stories. That was that. And then all of a sudden, when he start having some games that were less than ideal, then people start jumping off the bandwagon. People start talking about the salary. But before that, they all loved him. So that's just what it is in Philly, man. It's like, so you got to take the good, you got to take the bad. Philly isn't for everyone. You just got to take the good and you got to take the bad.
And I do think Tobias Harris has handled things well, publicly. He doesn't say anything. And he only had that one time where he got frustrated with the fans when they were saying things about him, and he had a really good game and made a big play. And he said, he mouthed basically, don't come over here now or whatever. I don't even remember the exact words that he used, but he's basically saying, nah, don't jump on now. Keep that same energy. And since then, everything has been cool between he and the fans. But you're right, man. They look at people and they look at them what they feel realistically who they are. All-stars, budding stars, really, really good complementary players on the team, things of that nature. And of course, they don't know what's going on behind the scenes outside of what the reporting is from yourself, since you do so well at it. maybe I'll have some things from time to time that I'm able to share, and just other reports in general. So, they're looking at it from a basketball perspective, nothing more. Basketball perspective of what they see on the floor. So this is something that's going to be interesting. You're right; it'll probably blow over pretty quickly anyway, especially if he's going to be on the team, because everything is going to shift then key to Paul Reed, George Niang, Jalen McDaniels, Shake Milton, and of course James Harden, and that's where it's going to go. So
Yeah,
uh,
it's the summertime.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll go away. It'll go. Now, there may be some jokes out there for about a week that are just hanging with the assassin scorer thing, but it will eventually go away. All right, man. On our final one, we got to talk about as free agency gets underway. It's time to talk about the big story, also just in general of beginning the week with the James Harden piece. We'll get into that a little bit when we get back. Final segment here on Locked On 76ers. Welcome back. Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Devon Givens here on Locked On 76ers. All right, man. I mean, the other big part is James Harden. The story has been ever evolving since the season ended. From the reporting that you've had, whether it was James Harden seemingly looking like he was going to have a reunion with the Houston Rockets, and then have not just a reunion with the Houston Rockets, coming back to Philadelphia, and now it seems like right now, Keith, it seems like it's leaning again based on the reporting that you've had. It seems like it's leaning, and nothing much has changed. So back to Philadelphia. So what are you suggesting here? What are you thinking? Because I have my thoughts. 2-year deal. That's my opinion on where it should go and where it should stop. Daryl Morey, as you mentioned, loves this guy. Even though he may take a short-term deal, you know what short-term might mean? 3 years instead of 4. I'm saying 2. That's where it needs to go, and it can't go any higher.
I mean, you know what? I don't really know, like in regards to years and stuff like that. The thing is, I mean, it could be 2 years with a team option. It could be 1 year with a club option. You know what I mean? So you know, so 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 that's what I meant. You know, what I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't know, But the funny part is not funny, but like let's just say this. So I feel like what really happened is like he had all intentions, and Houston had all intentions of basically saying, you know what, we want James. And I think you and other people and everybody else were correct when they said it doesn't make sense. It's a move that really doesn't make sense. Like, you got young guys who need the ball. You have young guys to get up and down the floor and go. You need somebody that's going to be able to get them involved, and somebody that's going to be able to go. And the more we think of it, even though the owner is in love with him, even though other people are in love with him, the more you think of him, he's just not a good fit for the Houston Rockets.
And that's it. It's a fit thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fit thing.
When you hear about Fred VanVleet possibly going to Houston, he may not be a better player than James Harden, but he's
a better fit.
Right.
A better fit. And then you also hear that, there are certain people, or sources are saying there are certain people within the organization, newcomer coaching within the coaching staff, that are saying we'd rather have Fred. You know what I mean? So when you look at the money, and for them to get Fred, they know they'll probably have to overpay for him, right? So that money that James is going to get, it could go to Fred. Who knows, right? I mean, stuff could change, but it just seems like the 76ers are going to get James. And then the more you talk about it, you hear James saying, yeah, I really like what Nick Nurse is as a coach and this and that. So it's kind of like, well, you wonder, like, well, how come this ain't come out right after the meeting? But now it's coming out now. So is that because you probably figure out that Houston may want to go a different direction?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So is a lot of that going on, man. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm number one really to know what's the right amount of years to give someone. Now I know you don't want to give them 4 years at the max, right? Now I think that
or
if
4
there's
years period.
or if there's a market, then you tend to overpay, right? If there was a market, but there doesn't appear to be a market, man. It appears to be it was the Sixers or the Rockets, and now it seems like the Rockets and really want to go after Fred. So, yeah, like it's up to them. Now, my thing is, do you give them those years, like basically saying, hey, you did a lot, you took 15 million less, so let's just help you out. Let's just do things like that, like thank you for what you did. But yeah, I mean, to me, I hate to say it, these next two, it seems to me that they're going all in for this year. And then after this season, it's going to be a lot of evaluating people on the roster. That's just what it seems like.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well,
I mean, what I mean by that is, it's like, you have a guy like Tobias Harris. Like, you have him. He's in his final year of his deal. No contract extension. We haven't heard anything about a contract extension. If it doesn't work out, he could get traded or become a free agent. If it works out, they can give him an extension, right? James Harden is expected to opt out. Well, what do? You give him a short-term deal, right? Like, Maxey, that's someone that you're invested in. You have Joel. And what I mean is, if this year doesn't work out, these guys, Joel, James, PJ, Tobias, are all 30 and above. And what you can do if it's not going to work out, what you can do is you can say, hey, like, we can break this up. We could break it up. So you're right. Like, you don't want to give James 4 years knowing you're not going to be able to trade him. You're not, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. No question about it, man. Well, could be a busy week. We're anticipating, a lot of stuff to talk about here as we get ready for free agency once again. The Sixers have a number of free agents, including James Harden, and we'll break all of those down and discussing those players individually, and also maybe looking out there to see what it might make sense for the Sixers to possibly go out there and try to acquire for the team itself. Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day on this Monday. Every day is tomorrow on the show. Again, we'll dive into a little bit more of the free agents that are currently on the Sixers right now. And will some of them be back? Will they not be back? And take a look at around the NBA with some players that are maybe looking for new homes. Keith, do you mind letting the good folks know where they can find us?
Yeah, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts at. It's free and available. But also make sure you go to our Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. When you go to that YouTube channel, make sure you click on the Liberty Bell and you become a new subscriber. While becoming a new subscriber, you will get updates or you'll get alerts whenever a new podcast is out. Secondly, you need to listen to my man D today from 6 to 10 p.m. on 97.5 FM on the Divine Giving Show. You can follow D on Twitter at DivineG975. You can follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers, and you can read my articles in the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is inquirer.com. Inquirer with an I. Peace.
All right, man. Appreciate it. We'll catch up tomorrow. Thanks.
Appreciate you, bro.
You got it.